Hi, I'm John Ray, and welcome to the Thriving Podcast. I'm your host and intuitive coach, dedicated to amplifying your intuition, transforming your mind, and igniting your inner magic to create a life you're obsessed with. 2 years ago, I was burnt out as fuck in a toxic relationship and a successful tech career that I just wasn't happy in anymore. I left it all behind with no plan, and now I'm running my own business, immersed in purpose and passion, happily married to my soulmate, and living out my dreams every single day. And if you're badass enough to be listening to this podcast, then you're already on the fast track to doing the same, babe. On this podcast, we'll dive into all things life, business, heart, mind, body, and soul, empowering you to up-level your life and embody your happiest, healthiest, and hottest self. It's time to make idealistic your new realistic, because you're not just here to survive, you're here to thrive. Hello. Happy Thriving Thursday. Welcome back to the podcast, you guys. It is the day after the full moon. Normally, I would be recording this actually on the day of the full moon. I would have recorded it yesterday, Wednesday, but full moon got me down, you guys. Full moon got me down. Yeah, I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast before. I know I've talked about it on Instagram. If you haven't noticed, I get so confused. I cannot keep track of what I talk about here and what I talk about on Instagram. I also don't know how many of you keep up on Instagram with me or just listen to the podcast. So it's always this weird thing of what do you know? But yeah, anyway, the more that I've really opened my channel and just gotten in tune with my body and with more connected to source and nature and my intuition, the more that I've really started to feel the effects of the energies in the cosmos, and the full moons really affect me, which is a good thing because, full moons, they illuminate a lot and they help you release a lot so that you can manifest more, right? And create space for new and bigger and better and up level and shift your frequency. And it's all good stuff. That's necessary for big manifestations, but it can be a lot. It could be intense. So yeah, it's been an intense emotional week. And yeah, so the full moon peaked yesterday, but the energies will still be very prevalent throughout the rest of the week, the weekend. And I'm going to be really real. I did not want to record this podcast. I put it off to the last possible minute. And this morning I was trying to find every possible reason, every possible excuse to not record it. I was I was trying to baby myself a little. I was oh, you're just not in the right place to record. You're just feeling too emotional. And they're blah. And it's such a nuanced thing because, with this whole wave of honoring your emotions, you really have to have a really strong intuitive discernment to be able to do that in an aligned way, because a lot of people, they don't actually know what that means, and they don't know how to tune in to what they're supposed to be honoring and what nudges they're supposed to be following, and they don't know how to tune into what feels expansive and what feels contracting and what feels small, right? And I could totally see a past version of myself or a lot of other people that I know thinking, that not recording the episode today would be honoring your emotions and would be the right thing to do, right? And not forcing it, quote unquote. But I knew, because I could feel in my gut, I could feel intuitively that this was really a call for me to step into my leadership even more and to really push through fear, right? Because there are times when we're called to rest and to be still. And there are times when we're called to move forward and to take action. And I think that's something people get confused, is just because so many of us have been in that action mode and in that narrative of we need to push through and keep taking action no matter what, that I know I've talked about this before, but we kind of boomerang back, and then we're we get scared of taking action, And so it's a process of finding that balance again and recognizing that it's not actually about, are you resting? Are you being still? Or are you taking action? Are you moving? It's about which one is the fear telling me to do, right? So it's really about learning how to listen to which voice is the fear and which voice is intuition. What feels expansive, what feels aligned, and what feels contracting, what's playing small, what's hiding, what's aligned with my truth, right? Because sometimes the fear is going to tell you, you have to keep working, you can't take a break. And that's when your intuition is actually saying, no, we need to rest. But sometimes the fear is going to tell you, please keep hiding, right? Like, don't go record that podcast episode. I'm scared. Like, I don't want to be seen. And that's the time when you have to push through and actually show up and take the action, right? So anyway, just a little just like real time, real life example of like how that comes up, and that comes up so often in entrepreneurship. And so often if you're living a life where you're trying to thrive, right? Anyone listening to this podcast, like, you're somebody who has big goals, big dreams, you're trying to manifest big things. And this is the thing I feel like just not, it's funny, but it's not talked about enough, is when you ask the universe for something, when you set an intention, when you claim something, when you're trying to call something in, right? Like, you're going to get the experiences and the challenges that are needed to bring about the alchemy that you need to undergo in order to manifest that thing, in order to shift your frequency to align with that thing, right? And so it's like, I think it's just this kind of, the warped perspective of we're always looking forward, always looking ahead to the good thing we want, because that's going to make our life better. And like, a lot of people don't realize that, like, you have to go deep into the shit. You have to go deep into the shit to come out on the other side, to get the really big shiny stuff, right? Like, it's not just forward. And that's a big thing that I've even had my own lessons really like deepened with recently, of like, when you're wanting to manifest something, you have to really check yourself and be like, what am I trying to run away from by wanting to manifest this, right? Because that's not what it's about, right? We can't be wanting to manifest more money because we're trying to run away from that old version of ourselves that is broke or in debt or not good with money, right? We can't be trying to manifest our dream partner because we're still ashamed and trying to run away from that past version of ourselves that was in a toxic relationship, right? Or has been single forever. And I think that's where the motivation comes from a lot of the time, right? Your goals are actually kind of set based on, what don't I like about my current and what don't I like about my past? And it's not that that's wrong, obviously, right? Like, your goal is to change something about your current situation, but it's really just the perspective on, like, are you wanting to manifest this because you're running away from something or because you're running towards something? And it's really, really important to actually stop and ask yourself. I was actually just talking to a client about this because it's so funny, because often the thing that we think or say that we're fearing is just representative of a fear of an experience we had in the past, right? And it's not even the fear of the experience, it's the fear of how you responded or reacted in that experience, right? So it's really actually, again, a fear of reverting to that old version of yourself. And that signifies that you are trying to run away from that old version, right? If there's a fear of being that version of yourself again, then that's a sign that you haven't fully accepted and integrated that version of yourself, right? Because if you had fully accepted and integrated, there wouldn't be a fear of reverting, because she would be integrated and she would be a part of your expansion. She'd be a part of you. She'd be accepted. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So whatever the goal is, right? If you're running towards a goal, that means that you're motivated from desire. You're motivated from love for yourself, right? You're motivated from excitement. You're motivated from worthiness. I deserve this. I'm so excited about this. I have passion and desire driving this. And that's why I'm running towards it, right? It's an empowered manifestation. It's an empowered place of manifestation. It's an empowered frequency. But if you're running away from something, you're not running towards the manifestation from a place of desire. You're running away. You're trying to manifest from a place of lack, from a place of scarcity. I need to manifest this thing so that I can be worthy, right? So that I can feel deserving, right? I need to manifest this thing so that I can run away from this other situation that I was in, so that I can run away from this identity, right? But it doesn't work that way. As long as you're trying to run away from the identity is going to keep chasing you, right? And you're never going to reach the thing, because the way that you manifest the thing is by embodying the identity first. So check yourself and ask, right? Am I making choices right now and manifesting right now out of lack and scarcity? Another sign of this is if you catch yourself saying, well, this is going to happen because it just needs to. There's just no other option. It needs to happen. I have a lot of people say, I'm like, how do you know it's going to work? Well, it's going to work because it has to work. No. Right? It doesn't work that way. You're automatically setting yourself up for failure if you say that, right? Because you're manifesting from need. You're manifesting from lack and scarcity. Why is it not? This is going to work because this is my soul path and I trust my path so much, right? I know that if I am listening to my intuition and following my passions and desires and listening to my soul calling, that I cannot fail because it's what I'm here to do. That's a really important difference. So are you manifesting from abundance, desire, worthiness, or are you manifesting from lack, scarcity, need? And what are you trying to run away from? And an exercise I gave to my client was, I said, the version of you that is wanting to run away from your past, that wants to be in this new timeline, this new reality already, right? What is she afraid of? I said, write out everything she's afraid of. She's probably afraid of falling back into certain experiences that you went through, and rightfully so, right? This is the thing. It's so important to just validate the fears. So I actually told her to identify all these fears. Like, what are you afraid of experiencing that you experienced in your past that you do not want to experience again? It's okay to be afraid of that, right? But name it. Because right now it's like we're clinging to that future vision because we don't even want to identify the fear. We don't even want to acknowledge that we're fearing that because we feel like we give it power by naming it, right? If I admit, oh, I'm afraid of being broke again. I'm afraid of letting myself fall back into a toxic relationship. I'm afraid of failing again, right? Then we acknowledge that there is a potential of truth, right? We acknowledge that we believe that there's a potential it could happen, because if we didn't believe there was a potential it could happen, we wouldn't be afraid of it, right? But what actually happens is naming the fear doesn't give it power, it takes away its power. Just like Voldemort and Harry Potter, right? Fear of the name is fear of the thing itself. So if you actually can name the fear, even no matter how irrational it sounds, right? If you can say, actually, I realize that there's a part of me that's afraid of falling back into a toxic relationship. And you'll notice if you just say that out loud, you'll often realize too how unrealistic it is. As soon as you say it, you're like, oh my God, wait a minute. There's no way I could ever run back there. I am so not the same person, right? And all that's needed sometimes truly is just voicing it and naming it and just facing the fear head on. And the alchemy can happen that quick. So that's a little bit of a side tangent, but it's all related to really this concept of running towards versus running away. And when you are a leader, you got to be running towards, right? You got to be manifesting from that place. And so this is kind of really related to something that I'm going through right now. So with the themes of this full moon, again, I don't know a ton about it. Again, I'm not a huge astrologer, but it's full moon in Leo. And the themes that I've really picked up on and that I'm just feeling that I've been really having experience with and downloads with, etc., are really related to visibility and validation and really just showing up and being seen. And I'm also realizing, I think, just the more that I go into this, that this is really my area of expertise. This is really the area that I'm here to work in. This is really the message I'm here to spread. This is the work I'm here to do. This is my niche, right? Is helping my clients step into their leadership, show up and shine their light, right? Be more visible, be seen, share more of their truths, step into their authenticity, connect to their intuition, right? Confidence, magnetism, it's all in that umbrella, right? Your unique voice. And so I was journaling a lot on all of this, and I was doing a meditation related to the throat chakra, because I was like, okay, we need some throat chakra activation with all of this energy coming up around visibility and validation. And in the meditation, I just saw the words. It was just money, visibility, validation. And I was like, okay, I think that's what I need to talk about on the podcast today. Because I think, and this is all related. I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but it's all related. So it'll all come together. These concepts of leadership, of not playing small, right? Really owning your stage, being unapologetically you, really letting yourself be seen, showing up, sharing your truth, not hiding anything, right? Not hiding. What are you hiding from? What are you trying to hide? And it ties all together because hiding is not being visible, right? And the full moon in Leo specifically is really about validation, and where are we seeking validation externally. And so a big breakthrough that I had was it's not always just that we're seeking validation externally through people. It can also be through things, right? And they kind of go hand in hand. There's overlap, obviously, but I'm going to tell you about my specific breakthrough that I had. Okay. So this is really, really real time, again, raw, open moment. I was just journaling on this morning. But again, I got the guidance. I was like, John Marie, like, it's time to really be a leader. Like, you are a leader. You're claiming your leadership, right? And I talk about this in my business, and I always talk about, to be a CEO, to be an entrepreneur, you have to be a leader. And being a leader means you have to go first. Being a leader means you have to show up even when you're scared, right? That was a big thing. And it's funny because Sandra and I have been watching this show recently. It's called From. I talked about it on Instagram a little bit, but it's very similar to Lost. So if you're a Lost fan, then I recommend checking out. As I said on Instagram, it's a little bit more horror-y, like kind of horror vibes, like a horror movie, than I personally really like, and a lot more than Lost was. Like, Lost wasn't really horror vibes. But if you can get past that, if you can navigate it, it's not like all like that. It's just a lot more than, other stuff that I watched. But if you can find a way to navigate that, then the mystery and the characters and the other stuff is really intriguing and really good. And I loved Lost, so I just love mystery and all that. But anyway, there's this one character, the main character, and he's like the leader of the town, right? And I feel like it's really, I've been getting a lot of lessons from this of just like what it means to be a leader, right? And it's like, he is also really scared, right? Everyone's scared, but it's like, that's what it means to be a leader, is like, you have to be the one to still be able to step up and lead and tell the people what they need to hear and share the message, right? And stand in your power, even when you're scared too. Right. And again, it also means that you don't have to pretend you're not scared, right? You can admit you're scared. So that's why I came on here. And I was just like, guys, gonna be completely honest. Like, I'm going through it too, and I also have a responsibility. I have a sacred responsibility, and a responsibility that I committed to by starting this business, starting this podcast, to still show up. Right. And to not run away and try to hide just when I don't feel like it, or when I'm scared, or when things get hard. Right. And that's a really important lesson that is going to come up over and over again in your business if you are an entrepreneur, again, because you're always on the front lines as an entrepreneur. All right. So again, I know I'm kind of going all over the place here, but I also told myself, I was like, whatever comes out, comes out. This episode might be messy, but all you got to do is just show up and just speak from the heart. So that's what I'm doing. It's so funny too, because as I'm saying that, I'm like, oh my God, it's literally not a big deal, right? I'm like, it's just another podcast episode. You've put out like almost 40 of these episodes every single week. You show up and talk. Like, why does it feel like such a big deal today? You know what I mean? And it's just like funny how emotions just make things feel like a big deal, even if they're not. So, okay, the breakthrough that I had this morning was there was a lot of threads. So how can I just distill it down? Okay. So essentially I was journaling on what is preventing me from calling in. I don't even know how to say it. Like, I don't even want to say my next level of wealth, because it's almost like what I was journaling, I was saying, I feel like I'm completing a level right now. And to me, how I'm perceiving it is the level is the transition to fully supporting myself and covering all of my expenses through my business, right? So I've been in my business for a year and a half, and I started out basically living just off credit cards. And then I got like 7 different jobs, and I was gigging and trying to balance all these jobs, and I was working literally every single day of the week. And I was like just barely making ends meet with all of that income. And then I tapped into my 401k, and then I was primarily using that to support me. And then I started making some income from my business, but it still wasn't enough to cover my expenses. So I was living primarily off the 401k and then starting to increase my revenue in my business, which is still amazing, right? And this is a big thing I've had to come back to over and over. And I talk to my clients about this a lot, right? Of course, gratitude and celebration. Again, with this running away, running towards, which we're going to also loop back to, stay with me. It's so important to also be so connected to the present moment, be celebrating everything along the way and finding gratitude in everything, right? So it's like when I started making money in my business, I wasn't like, oh, that's great, but I need to get to 5K months. I was like, oh my God, like I'm actually making consistent revenue in my business. I actually have revenue booked out through March of next year, right? I'm actually making $300 months, $500 months, and it kept increasing. Oh, my revenue's actually increasing every month. My revenue's doubling. Like I took time to celebrate all of that, which was really, really important. But this other part has come up over and over again, right? That I've had to continue to navigate of but it's still not enough. It's still not enough, but you're still not there, but you're still not fully supporting yourself through your business, right? You're still not legit, right? And that's really what I realized I was tying to it, was like this legitimacy of like, I'm not a legit business owner. I'm not a quote unquote successful entrepreneur until I've reached this point. That was like this level I was viewing. Like, I need to complete this level, and then what? Right? And so that's kind of what I was journaling on this morning, because I've been getting closer and closer. I'm at like almost 2K months now, which is incredible. Again, I'm so grateful. And again, I have so much momentum. My business just keeps growing, but I was really, really hung up on this. You know, it was like I was just always expecting more of myself. Right? And I was like, okay, why am I viewing it? Because it's immediate red flag, right? Anytime you catch that you're looking at something of like, just once I just get this, then it'll be good, right? Like, you really have to dive into that, because that's like the glaring, what do we need to dig into here, right? Because that's obviously a myth, right? Whenever you catch yourself in a, once I blank, then things will be good, better for some reason. It's like, okay, what story am I telling myself here? And so what I uncovered was that it was like, once I complete this level, which was represented as me finally being able to fully support myself, aka cover all of my expenses through income from my business alone, was like, then I'll be a successful entrepreneur. And what I realized was, not that I obviously didn't already view myself as successful, right? But it was this like level of success that I was pedestaling essentially. And what I realized was I was holding that up there as that would be giving me permission to then show up even more boldly, to then claim my expertise even more. I didn't realize until this morning I was actually holding myself back from being seen at a certain level, from showing up at a certain level, because I didn't have the money yet, right? Even though I had money, I've been making money, making consistent money, consistent sales, multiple high ticket sales and high ticket clients. I'm working all the time, right? Not all the time in a bad way, all the time in like, I'm like, my business is active, right? Even though I have all this happening, everything is going amazingly, I still had a fear, essentially, that, well, if I don't have that money to back it up, then who am I to show up and talk about this? You know? It's like, oh yeah, I have that money, but I don't have that much money, right? I haven't hit that point. I haven't hit that level. And so who am I to talk about it? And I realized that really I was trying to call in the money as a protection, as a shield, because I was like, okay, why am I feeling needy for this? Right? And it was like, I want to hit that level of income, of revenue in my business specifically, so that I feel like I then have a shield, that I have permission to show up more fully. And so it revealed this myth that was in my subconscious of, well, I can't show up any more fully than I already am until I have the money, because I don't have the permission. That money is going to validate me. That money is going to validate my success and validate my worth and validate my confidence and validate my expertise. That's a story that I was telling myself. And so I share that to number one, because as soon as this all came through, I was like, okay, well, you know what it is, right? Like, you're trying to hide the fact that you're not there yet, because you feel like that's making you less than, so you need to go fucking own it. That's what I always tell my clients, right? I'm sure I've mentioned this on the podcast before. Whenever you feel imposter syndrome, whenever you catch yourself that you're trying to hide something, go fucking own it, right? Because that's the only thing that's holding you back, is that you feel you have something you have to hide. And we don't hide here, right? Again, that's not what being a leader is. That's not what being an entrepreneur is. That's not what being a CEO is. That's not what being a light worker is. We don't hide. That's not what being the best version of yourself is, right? I don't even care like what you do, what your goals are. If you're someone listening to this podcast, you're trying to live in alignment with truth. You're trying to live as your best self, right? We don't hide. We don't hide things about ourselves, and we don't hide ourselves, right? Which is kind of the same thing. So I was like, okay, you got to just fucking own it. Why are you listening to that voice? What would you tell a client? What would you tell a client that was saying this? Who fucking cares? Who fucking cares? And I actually went back and watched a couple of my own videos. And this happens to me a lot. I'll like go back and like scroll through my own stuff when I'm like kind of needing guidance, and I just always end up clicking. I don't even remember what it was about, like the video that I posted, and then I'll click on a video and I'm like, wow, that was exactly what I needed to hear. So isn't it funny, like sometimes our content, we make it for ourselves too, right? Like we always think we're making it for other people, like we're also making it for ourselves. And I clicked on this one video that was talking about your purpose being bigger than you and your business being bigger than you. And this is something that I come back to over and over again, because again, when you are truly owning that role as a thought leader, as a movement leader, right? As a coach, you're a leader. As an entrepreneur, you're a leader. As a CEO, you're a leader. When you're owning that, you have to have a why that is so strong that you don't have a choice but to keep going, right? You don't have a choice but to show up. That's literally what got me to sit down here today in front of this mic and hit record. I was like, I don't have a choice. Am I taking on this mission or not? Is this my sacred responsibility or not? Is this what I'm here to do or not? Because if not, what the fuck am I doing, right? If I'm going to just not record the podcast one day because I'm scared because I don't feel like it, then what the fuck am I doing if I'm not taking this seriously, right? I don't have a choice to just be like, man, I'm scared. I'm not going to do it today, right? It's like you have to take yourself fucking seriously, and especially in early stages of entrepreneurship, but in all stages. I see people run into this where it's like, why aren't you taking yourself seriously? Like, why are you giving yourself an out? This is bigger than you. Right? This is not about your ego. This is not about your ego. This is about literally what you're here on this earth to do. And if I say that and you're like, no, it's not. It's really not that big. It's not that serious, right? Then you're not on your soul path. You're not aligned with your mission, because that's how it should feel, right? So if the path you're on doesn't invoke that strong of a why within you, then what is the path that would? Because that's the path that you want to be going towards, that you want to be moving forward on, that you want to be committing to. So yeah, who fucking cares, right? I was like, why are you pedestaling money, John Marie? I was like, that's all the more reason why you should go fucking talk about it. Because this is something else I talk about all the time. It's like, stop pedestaling money. And it's just so crazy how people get in our heads, right? And it's so funny that so many people you see online, you guys, like, you have no idea. You have no idea what they're hiding, what's going on behind the scenes. And it just curates such a picture of what we think success is, where we think we need to be, and how we think we need to show up, and what we think we need to hide. And money is so pedestaled, of course, in this society right now. And of course, it's just like a microcosm of that. But, coaches posting, oh, I just closed this much in sales. I made this high cash month, posting Stripe screenshots, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I could do that. I've done that, right? Yeah, it looks impressive, but I also think it's really important to be really real about that's not everything. And that's such a small piece of the puzzle. Yeah, it's great to make money in your business. Yes, that's a goal. Yeah, making money is awesome, right? And I do believe that it is going to continue to become more and more of a part of my message to help people heal their relationship with money, because I've done a lot of work in this area and I'm still doing it. And I think a big part of that for me, is helping people take money off the pedestal. And when I say take money off the pedestal, I don't mean like not desiring it. I just mean not putting it above anything. Right? So that means, first of all, not looking at money as the only measure of success and validation, not judging your worth or your worthiness off of your finances. And that also means normalizing luxury, normalizing having a lot of money, normalizing wealth, right? Not pedestaling and acting like people with a lot of money are different than you. Right? Not acting like money makes people be a certain way, right? That it makes them bad or it makes them good or whatever it is. Realizing that money is a neutral tool, a neutral resource. 444 on my clock as I'm saying this. Money is neutral, okay? And so again, we don't ever want to be pedestaling anything, but everyone and their mother is pedestaling money. And so I'm done with it. I'm done with letting myself subscribe to that and fall for it, right? Because again, yeah, I had a 7K month in December. Yeah, I've had a 5K day. I've closed multiple 5K packages. I'm still 20K in debt. I'm still not fully covering my expenses with my business. Yeah, I have consistent cash months. I've been making consistent revenue in my business since June, but there's so much you don't see. So I have all these huge wins, which are incredible, right? So I'm not saying this to downplay the wins at all. I'm saying this because I know that if I was falling for it, you guys are falling for it, right? You're seeing people post about these wins and you're thinking, what stories, when you see someone post a Stripe screenshot, right? When you see someone post, oh, I had a 7K month, blah, 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 whatever it is. Oh, I had a 5K day. Okay, if someone says they have a 5K day, that could mean so many things. That could mean they collected 5K in cash that day. That could mean they had a 5K sales day, which means they closed a 5K package, but they're not actually collecting all the money that day, right? That could mean they had a 5K month and they just happened to close the sale or collect all the money on one day, right? And they maybe didn't make any other money that whole month, right? So like, I just want to bring some realness into the conversation around money, especially in the online space, because I think a lot of people don't realize this. When you see someone has a 5K day, do you automatically assume, oh, they must be having 5K days all the time, right? Oh, they must be making just 5K here and there all the time, right? Always on social media, people are going to be making things sound as good as possible. And it's not a bad thing, but it's important to have a balance of perspective, right? So yeah, I just want to be real of like, hey, actually things are going great financially in my business and they just keep getting better. And also my financial situation is still far from where I would like it to be, you know? And again, I think it's important to just be honest about it and to also acknowledge that that doesn't make me any less qualified to talk about what I talk about, right? I've healed so many layers and reprogrammed so many beliefs around my relationship with money, especially over the past like 5 months. And I definitely know so much more than I was not aware of 5 months ago, right? And in 5 months from now, I'm going to know so much more than I'm not aware of now. And I think that's another thing is you don't have to know everything to know what you know, right? And again, it's this constant like equation of perfection with everything, right? People equate consistency with perfection. You equate expertise with perfection, right? And it's like, well, if I don't know everything, if there's still more for me to learn, then I'm not qualified to talk about it. Then I'm not good enough, right? Then who am I? Then I'm not legit. And it's like, okay, perfection is a myth. Perfection is impossible. You will never reach it. And there will always be more for you to learn. Right? And we're all just human at the end of the day. And I just was talking to my husband about this too, because I was like, I feel dumb, like talking about this sometimes. I'm like, I know what I'm talking about, but I feel dumb. And he pointed out, he was like, a therapist doesn't have to have a perfect life to be able to be a good therapist. And a sports coach doesn't have to be the best at the sport to be able to be a good sports coach. Right? And so this is something also I think important to mention for coaches specifically. Of like, again, remember, you're human. And again, you're never going to have your shit together all the time because you're human. Just because you hold space for other people and you support people and give people advice and guidance and you coach people doesn't mean that you're perfect with everything, right? And also, it's like things take time, right? Again, so it's like I have all this knowledge. Again, 5 years ago, I wasn't a coach even, right? So it's like, again, like our past manifests our present and our present manifests our future. And so again, I've been in my business for 1.5 years. And clearly I've seen the results of my actions and beliefs changing, but there's time to go. And again, I think that's where the social media standard really messes with your head because you think that you need to be so far ahead and you need to be somewhere instantly. And it's like these things take time to integrate, right? We all have our own paths and journeys and lessons to learn. I remember talking to my coach about this a year ago, actually, when I was like just manifestation, not even business, which I think if you're a business coach specifically, you put a lot more pressure on the financial aspect, especially. But even when I was just coaching manifestation, I remember like, I feel like a fraud because I say that I can help people manifest and I know how to manifest, but I haven't manifested this money and I haven't manifested this thing. And she like called me out and she was like, you're never going to have manifested every single thing in the world. Like how are you ever going to start your business if like you wait until you've manifested, you can't wait till you manifested the business to teach people how to manifest, right? And she told me about how she knew this really well-renowned coach who taught manifestation who had been manifesting her soulmate for like years, right? And just because she hadn't manifested that thing yet didn't make her any less of an expert, right? It just meant she's also human on her own path. And honestly, I feel myself like wanting to justify and like try to convince you, right? Like, oh no, I've admitted it. And I need to now like convince you that I still know what I'm talking about. And it's like, no, again, like fuck that. Like, because I know, and this is again, what I always talk about, I know that I am an expert at what I do. Right? And I know that I'm qualified. And that's why it's so important for you to be so grounded in your own confidence, right? And your own expert energy. You need to be hyping yourself the fuck up, and you need to know that it's not anything outside of you that validates you or gives you your legitimacy, right? It's not anything outside of you. And the second you try to hand that over to the clients, the followers, the views, the money, the awards, whatever it is, the second you externalize that to anything outside of you is the second that you give away your power. So I don't need to justify to anyone, right? Because if anyone, any of the 30 to 80 people listening to this podcast episode listens to this and is like, oh my God, John Marie's not even making enough money to cover all of her expenses through her business yet after a year and a half, never working with her. Good. They're not my client anyway, It's just like, that's why I'm showing up here literally talking about this being so open, because I want to show you guys, like, I practice what I preach, right? I'm embodying my message. Like, this is exactly what I would tell a client. And so that's what I tell myself. And then I act and I don't listen to the fear, and that's what I do. So to kind of tie this all together, because I have a call. So I can't talk for that much longer, but really like the message I want you to take is, again, this coming back to this visibility, validation, self-worth. It's often money, but it could be something else. But look at, in the leadership, right? So to really bring this all back together is, where are you waiting for something outside of you to give you permission to start showing up more fully? Where are you waiting for something else, whether that's until you have a certain number of followers, until you're making a certain amount of money, until you have a certain number of clients, until you have any clients maybe, right? Until I have blank, until blank, right? What is your sentence? Once blank, then I'll be able to just show up like I have nothing to hide. Then I could be super honest, right? I remember I had a client one time, she wanted to start a podcast. She was starting a podcast with her friend. And well, like the girl I was talking to is my client. And she told me how her friend that she was starting the podcast with said something like, they went through and hid everyone from high school on their podcast page, right? Because they were afraid of them seeing. And she was like, oh, I can't wait until we grow the podcast and we're so big and famous and so successful. And then like we can unhide everyone and it won't matter, And it's like, we don't realize that we actually do fall into that mindset so often, right? Because it's like, obviously, no, that's not how it works, right? Obviously, you have to show up and be in the cringe. You have to do the stuff that feels embarrassing. You have to show up like you are there before you are. And yeah, you're gonna feel dumb, right? Because you're gonna feel dumb. You're gonna feel stupid. You're gonna feel maybe embarrassed, right? Because you don't have it yet, but that's the point, right? That's how it works. Again, you don't manifest miracles by making decisions that make sense, right? You don't create a future and a reality you've never experienced before by showing up the same way that you showed up in the past, right? You have to show up a new way. Like, it has to start within. Be, do, have. Right? You have to. You have to show up on your podcast like you already have thousands of people listening and $50,000 sponsorships when you're only getting 2 listens an episode or no listens, right? You can't be hiding and waiting until I have something external to validate. Because if you're not validating it, nothing external is going to come in to validate you, right? If you're not validating yourself and owning the shit out of whatever you're saying, doing, sharing, if you're not owning the shit of your own confidence and expertise and out of your vision, out of your talent, again, out of your truth, if you're not showing up fully, if you're not letting yourself be seen, if you're not putting yourself out there, if you're not taking up space, if you're not shining your light, if you're not stepping into the spotlight. Oh, I just got this metaphor. I just got this visual. Okay. So imagine there's a stage with the whole audience out on the stage, right? And there's a spotlight on the stage. You're not stepping into the spotlight, right? So that whole audience is out there waiting for you to step into the spotlight so they can burst into applause for you. But you're backstage saying, oh, I just can't wait until the audience starts clapping and then I know it's safe for me to step out onto the stage, into the spotlight. But they're not going to start clapping until you show up and put yourself the fuck out there and they know there's something to clap for, right? We just got to remember this perspective. And I know, again, this is not really stuff I haven't said before, most of it anyway, but it's really, this is the energy that I'm feeling with the full moon. This is just the message that I was being called to share is you got to step up into the spotlight. You can't wait for the applause to show up and start speaking, right? You can't wait for the money. You can't wait for the followers. You can't wait for the clients to start showing up like you already have them. So really ask yourself, it's the question we just always come back to, but it's true. How would you be showing up differently once you had the thing? How would you be showing up differently? What would that change? What are you waiting for to give you permission to show up in a certain way, to show up differently? You have to show that up that way now. You have to choose to start showing up that way now. You have to put yourself out there now. You have to say the thing, do the thing. What are you hiding? And what are you waiting? What are you waiting for? Some form of external validation to validate you that you have permission to stop hiding this thing. Now it's okay. Now I can show up in my truth, because it doesn't work that way. We got to stop playing small. It's time to play big. It's time to really embody your leadership. It's time to show up, be a leader, speak your truth, put yourself out there, go first, and stop looking for the validation outside of you. You don't need anything outside of you to say you're worthy of shining your light brighter. You're worthy of that just inherently, okay? So you don't need money, clients, support, applause, whatever it is. You don't need any external measure or anything outside of you to validate that you're worthy of shining your light, that you're worthy of owning the fuck out of your shit, okay? And last thing I'll say too is it's not just that you can't be waiting for the money, the clients, the followers to show up, right? That also can't be the reason you're showing up, right? That can't be what's motivating you. You can't be showing up because I need to show up so I can get the money, so I can get the clients, so I can get the support, so I can get the applause, right? You don't go on stage for the applause. You go on stage because you got something to say, right? Because you feel called to go on stage, right? Like you shine your light because you have a light to shine. So that's another really big theme here is creating from joy, creating from desire. Like I talked about in the beginning, creating because I'm worthy of creating, expressing because I'm worthy of expressing, because I have something to express, right? Pursuing your desires because you have them, right? Your desire is your permission. So again, connecting back to not waiting for those things to give you permission, but also those aren't the things that motivate you, right? You got to be doing it for you, because at the end of the day, if you're not doing it for you, then you're always going to fall off, right? Again, coming back to that why has to be so strong, and that has to be what drives you. So why are you getting up on the stage? It's not for the applause. And if it's just for the applause, then you're going to stop showing up when there's no applause. And it doesn't work that way. That's not how you manifest a big life. So yeah, that's all I have to say. I have to go to my call. So I love you guys so much. Yeah, I hope that this was helpful to you. Again, too, vulnerability is your power, right? Like the time that you actually feel the most powerful and the most confident is, again, when you own your shit and when you're vulnerable and honest. And a lot of times we think that it's the opposite. We think that confidence is like pushing past it and pushing through and kind of like going on top of it. And it's not. It's really just, again, being in it, digging into the shit, putting it out on display and being like, and now I'm turning it into diamonds or whatever. You don't make whatever that metaphor is. Okay. I love you guys so much. I do have a program, Be Seen Sales Queen, that is a lot about visibility and a lot about the stuff that we talked about today, but it's not currently on launch. I'm thinking I'm going to put it on launch again soon because I'm really feeling passionate about this topic again. If you're curious about that or about working with me as a private client, I do have a couple private coaching spots opening up soon. Then send me a message. Also would love to know what you thought of this episode. Would love to know if any of this resonated. Yeah, we really spilled the tea today. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you have an amazing rest of your day or night wherever you are. Take care of yourself if this full moon is hitting you also. And I will talk to you next week. Bye.